Working Dragon Mystic. I'm Drake. So, I've been getting a lot of questions about Astral Sanctums because this is a term I've used in a couple videos at least. And I've had a lot of people emailing me asking what this is. And for those who have an idea what it is, they're asking, how do I do this? How do I set one up and how do I use it? So I wanted to go ahead and do a quick video on a very basic primer for this subject. Okay, now first off, when I'm working with a student or an apprentice, I actually use Astral Sanctums as a tool to do three things without them actually realizing it. The first is I use it as a meditation exercise, and I believe that's the video I mentioned it in, was the basic meditation video. And it does help to work on your meditation skills, and it gives you something to do even if you ain't got a goal. So it's something you can constantly work on. I had one student refer to it as their own personally built video game. But the second thing is I use it to transition from meditation to trance and journey work, which, I'll be honest, that's probably one of the biggest, most helpful skills a practitioner can develop, and it gets so little attention. Everyone wants to talk about dream work and astral travel, and they want to put those up on this pedestal. And astral travel is a version of journey work, but it's only the beginning of it. But we put it on that pedestal and we do nothing with it. So I think a lot more should go into those topics than currently is. And I'm actually wanting to do an entire course on journey work. But, that said, the third thing it does, and this one, I think a lot of practitioners get most benefit out of the meditation and this. It helps you develop your arcane senses or your psychic senses. Because literally, your astral sanctum, even when you don't realize it, it's engaging all your arcane senses at all times. So without even knowing it, you're training and flexing these senses and building them up. So these three things is why I will early on get an apprentice to start working in their astral sanctum. And I do it as soon as we start in meditation work. So, all that blabbering aside, what is it? Well, simply put, your astral sanctum is a location within the multiverse. Many will say it's in the astral plane, hence the name, where you take a piece of that infinite space and you shape it to your own little personal pocket dimension or pocket plane, if you will. The plane and everything in it responds to your thoughts, your wills, your wants. You can shape it, reshape it, build it however you want. Now, to a lot of people this sounds like make-believe. Well, it kind of is, but our imagination really is the key to magic. We have to be able to see it and visualize it to actually get it to work. And that's one of the big things. That's one of the huge hurdles for most people coming to magic is they say, well, I don't have an imagination. I can't visualize. If you can think of something, you can visualize. They try to put visualization up on this pedestal too. There's been a lot of books that are trying to counter this finally. If you can think it, your mind can see it. Even if you can't, your mind can see it. So, with that, what would you do? Well, what I usually tell my students to do on the basics is to get into a deep meditation. I recommend deep breathing for this because you don't have to think about it. You can just focus on your breathing and you can get that done. So yeah, deep breathing, it's easy because you don't have anything to focus on except just taking in that deep breath and letting it out. So that's my favorite one for this. Now once you're nice and relaxed and you feel that good, settled, meditative state coming onto you, you would then shift your focus over to your astral sanctum. And you'd put your focus there. You'd forget about your breathing and everything. You just totally move your focus over to your astral sanctum. Now this is where journey work is easy. Your consciousness follows your thoughts. Now, if we're talking about just astral travel or something like that, all you have to do is think it and you will go. So in this case, when you shift it to your astral sanctum, you're shifting it to that actual little pocket plane or dimension, whatever you want to call it, that you're setting aside for yourself. Now, what you see when you get there, that can differ greatly. And there's a few different approaches to this. First off, there are those who will say, just go there. And what you see is what you get, because it's kind of a natural foundation that suits you. And then there's people that when they do that, they see nothing. They're just in a giant black void. And they have to start from the ground up. Which some people enjoy because, I mean, well, what is it, that game Minecraft? It's popular for a reason. And in a lot of ways, your Astral Sanctum is like the ultimate game of Minecraft. Well, I guess I'm going to have to say I assume. I've actually, and I know a lot of people's going to probably message me and scream at me, but I've actually never played Minecraft. I've seen it played, but I've never actually played it. That's probably something I should remedy at some point. I don't know. So when you do that, you could see, you might show up at a place. You might show up in a desert, a forest, an island. Or you may show up in nothing, and you have to build from that. Me, when I first did this, I actually did show up on an island. It was a relatively large island, mountains, forests, and that's all that was there. And a single cave. I actually kind of liked that. So I really didn't change that. Now that said, had I not liked it, I could have completely reshaped it. Could have done away with the ocean, could have done away with the entire island, and built it from the ground up. I could have sent it straight back to absolute nothing and built it up. So you have that option. Now the second approach is, before you ever sit down to do the meditation, ask yourself, what type of environment would you want your sanctum to be? And once you have that decision, then when you project yourself to your sanctum, that's what you will see. So you get into the meditation and you move your focus to your astral sanctum, and you just tell yourself, you just think it. You don't have to say it, though you can say it, that I'm going to my astral sanctum. And in your mind's eye, you let that image just come to you. And that's it, you're there. Now here's the great thing. When you first start doing this, every time you go there, you may notice a little thing here, a little thing there is different and shaped different. Because honestly, the astral planes are very malleable. They shift constantly in and out. And they even shift to our own thoughts. So those little things are going to be natural. However, with time, with practice, with the more time you spend there, the more work you do on it, those things become very tangible and fixed. And the more fixed they become and the more real they become, well, that's actually just better for you as a practitioner. Your sanctum itself is gaining more and more power, more and more tangibility. It's becoming more and more real to you. So, once you've projected yourself, now what do? Well, you start building. And how you build is really up to you. I usually use I guess you could say the old wizard's method, or you just poof, it's there. Or you transmute it and shape it. I've often seen things when I want to change how it looks or whatnot. It kind of turns into a blob and shifts and shapes into what I want it to look like now. Or you can even have some of your spirit allies help you to do this if you're in a rush. At the same time, you may find that many of the entities you work with will alter your sanctum to suit what you're working on with them as is needed. An example of this is my sanctum. I actually just kind of enjoyed my little cave. What I did when I went there was I put a door on the cave. I had my private sigil on the door. And it really looked like a cave with a door on it. But when you went in, it kind of looked like an old I guess you call it a wizard study. It had a nice big desk. I had some pens and paper on the desk. There was a beautiful fireplace on one wall where two of the dragons I work with love to lay. And there were two large high-backed chairs to one side with a table between them. And the primary dragon I work with, he would always tend to sit there because he had a place for his wine. He loves his wine, so that's where he would always sit. And in the center, I had kind of a crystal configuration that I could use for scrying and energy storage and other things like that. That was where I started. Later, I put in a back hall, and it was just a hallway with different gates to different places. But that's really all I ever did. And then at one point in my studies, the elemental dragon rulers decided I needed to enhance my connection with them. And I needed to enhance my perspective and my view to me as a practitioner because I was holding myself back. So I went to my Astral Sanctum, and to my surprise, my cave had been replaced by a giant tower. And above the tower, there were actually multiple little floating towers, each one set aside for one of the elemental rulers to work with me, and they had designed it specifically for how they were going to work and teach me. So you can see these entities you work with can shape this too. Now, that said, I could have undone the tower easy enough, but once I saw it, once I understood why they made the changes, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And honestly, other than a few tweaks here and there, that's pretty much still how it works and how it appears. And I often go there. I walk on the beach and talk with entities. Honestly, most times when I do any type of journey work to speak with Odin, more often than not, he wants to sit on the beach with a campfire. And it's always in my Astral Sanctum. Now, there are times we are in other environments, but I would say 80% of the time, that's where he wants to be. And I'm okay with it. I love the beach, so it works. And what's better than a campfire on the beach? Great time to sit and talk. Any guys or gals out there who love camping, you know what I'm talking about. It just has that natural way of getting you to talk and communicate and really connect with a person. So, get creative. Do what you want with this thing. Shape it however you want. It can be anything. I know one person, they actually designed their sanctum to be the Bat Cave. There's one person, they have, their sanctum is, I think they said it was the Black Pearl from Pirates of the Caribbean. And then I have another friend, their sanctum is literally a duplicate of their own house in the astral plane. The only thing is, they can decorate it as extravagantly as they want and change it in ways they want. Another person, it's their dream house. They've kind of always been decorating what their dream home would be when they built it, and they've just kind of moved that over to their Astral Sanctum. As silly as it sounds, I know a person who plays World of Warcraft, and their sanctum is essentially, I want to say it was Orgrimmar, the Horde City. So, I mean, you can get silly with it, or you can be as serious as you want with it. It can be whatever you want. Totally. It's up to you. One of the more interesting ones that I've heard about described was it was floating islands amongst the stars, and each little island functioned kind of like a room, and you just kind of float from island to island. So it had a very celestial design about it. I thought that was pretty cool. And I've heard of ones that are built in underwater environments as well. Kind of have a City of Atlantis thing happening there. And I'm just giving these as examples for you to start brainstorming. None of these are right, none of these are wrong. You got to do what is yours. Okay? And like I said, if you think it, you can make it. It's that simple. There's no limitations on that. So the next question is, what is an Astral Sanctum for? What can you do with it? Well, first off, you interact with it the same way as you would anything else in your home. So you can move your chair. And I would highly recommend you interact with it in a physical way. So if you want to move your chair, you actually would reach out and grab it and move it to sit down. This is how you actually begin to develop your arcane senses, because as you interact with this environment, and the environment becomes more and more real, the environment's not necessarily becoming more real. Your senses are developing to the point where you can perceive it better. That's the real kicker. I would even suggest occasionally having a drink or something to eat while in your sanctum. My Astral Sanctum is actually the place where I was given a glass of wine, and I tried it and I enjoyed it, and I saw the bottle. Never had that wine before, so I didn't actually have any preconceived idea what that wine should taste like. I didn't even know it really existed. About 2-3 months later, I saw it in the store. Sure enough, it did exist. My curiosity got the better of me. I bought it. I brought it home, tried it, exact same flavor. It was one of those nice little confirmations that you can't get anywhere else. But, so it's that kind of interaction that's going to start building your senses. Secondly, start doing work there. Go there, meditate there. Go there, walk on the beach. Go there, do spell work. The great thing about your arcane sanctum is, like I said, if you can think it, it's there. How many times have you wanted to do a spell and you don't have the items? Well, if you go to your arcane sanctum, you can open up a cabinet. That cabinet will have every item you need in it. And that's a really handy thing for a magician or a practitioner of any kind to be able to utilize. Now, that said, do practice this, because energy has to flow like a river. So the astral plane is further away from our plane. So that energy is going to have to travel a bit farther to make something manifest here on the material plane. However, with a little practice and a little work, that ain't going to make no difference. Starting out, it's not what you want to rely on. In fact, I don't even rely on it today, even though I would say most of my spells I can get the same results out of, but there's still something I just love about doing magic here whenever I can. But, that said, my Astral Sanctum is always a place where I do retreat to quite often to do it, especially when I'm traveling. I may not be able to take everything with me that I'd have in my ritual room. That's okay, it's in my Astral Sanctum. And when I first started my practice, I didn't have a ritual room. We had basically a studio apartment. I didn't have any place to do anything. So my sanctum was, by default, a necessity. And even when we got a slightly bigger apartment, I still didn't have the room to do some of the larger rituals I wanted. So again, I got pushed over to my Astral Sanctum as a necessity. However, that actually did not hurt my magic. It may have slightly turned down my results a little bit at the beginning, but in the long run, it made me a better magician, a better practitioner, because it took away a lot of the limitations that I would have had otherwise. So now if I need to do a spell or something and I'm in a hurry, or I just don't got the money or whatnot, or I can't find the supplies, I can go to my Astral Sanctum and get that done right away. Just like that, nice and easy. And it also helped prepare me for getting ready to do journey work and soul travel style work, because when you make that jump to your Astral Sanctum, you are essentially crossing that line from meditation to trance. Now, one of the big problems a lot of people have with trance work is they get into that nice meditative state, and then there's like this jolting, falling feeling that's just really weird, and it tends to scare people when you shift from meditation into trance. Well, your Astral Sanctum gives you a way to make that transition, because instead of just falling to wherever, you're actually purposely stepping through the door to a location, and you're there. Now, from there, you can use that as a jumping off point for other things. But your Astral Sanctum is a great place to do ritual work, spell work, to meet with your spiritual allies, deities, entities you work with. It's a wonderful place to just have that go-to Well, Sanctum, kind of like Doctor Strange has oh, I don't know what his Sanctum's called. Sanctum Sectorum, I don't know, it's something like that. So you can use this for almost anything you want. And I would encourage you to use it often to build up those skills. That way you're not limited. I can't count the number of practitioners I meet who they tell me they needed to do a spell work or a ritual, but they couldn't because they didn't have X. Or they were visiting here and they weren't able to get privacy. Well, you don't need privacy or anything with your Astral Sanctum. I mean, there's been a lot of times my family does not like what I do, or they didn't when I started out. They didn't understand it. But if I was visiting them and I had something I had to do, I would either just tell them I was going to meditate, or pray, whatever you wanted to say. Or if I wanted to avoid that, I'd just wait until I went to bed, and when I laid down in the bed, I would just go to my sanctum. They didn't know the difference. And that's one of the beauties about it. You can do this any place, anywhere. When I travel, that's a lot of times what I do. My own personal work is done in the sanctum. And unless I'm working with a client, the only supplies I usually travel with is what I will need for my client. No reason to pack everything. But an astral sanctum is, in my mind, it is a key component to a practitioner's work and their developmental abilities, or developing their abilities. And honestly, I feel it's one of the most valuable things that you can begin to do and train to help yourself and help your practice, because it does start utilizing so many skills. And from there, you can really jump off and develop just about any other skill. And I say that because, first off, we already said it does help you make that jump into journey work. Okay, well, you can evoke entities from there really easily. So you start being able to understand the evocation project once you want to move into those magics. And a lot of people find astral evocation far easier in their sanctum than any other method. And they get great results from it. I know I do, and all my students have. Thirdly, you can start doing divinations from your sanctum. Those crystals I mentioned, I use those a lot for scrying and other divination forms. And so that helps you build that. Now, I'd say it was 10 years ago, the entities I work with, primarily the dragons, laid out what they referred to as the pillars of magic. Now those pillars, as they explained them, were divinations, invocation and evocation, and trance and journey work. Those three things, they said, if a practitioner could get a strong hold or mastery of, they could do anything they needed. Now, for 10 years, I've been putting that statement to the test. And so far, it holds up. I cannot find anything that those three pillars cannot support and hold up. And I'm going to continue to test it because that's what I do. I want to know, is that true? But in order to test it, I also had to push my study into areas that I had not. Evocation was not an area I had studied a lot of. I really didn't have a lot of interest in it. I didn't see why. Because I could do trance work and just go visit the entity in their realm or on the astral. So why would I need to evoke it here? That made no sense to me. But in order to test this statement, I did have to do evocation, and I had to push that envelope. And I did actually find reasons that evocation to the material plane is very different from evocation to the astral. But that's a topic for another video. So this is some of the things that you can do with an astral sanctum, and it really is that easy to start setting it up. So I encourage you to go ahead after this video, sit down, meditate, and start building your astral sanctum. Some people will say it's all in your mind. It's the concept of the mind palace. And it may be, but it still works. Though, in my experience, it's not just in your mind, because I have seen people who can travel to each other's astral sanctums and interact with each other. One of my instructors can pop in on mine. I can't quite jump to other people's like she can. That's not in my repertoire just yet. But that leads me to believe it's not just in your mind, and there is something a bit more outside to it. But whether you look at it as internal or external, if it's accomplishing the goals, I say, why does it matter? So I do encourage you, go ahead, take some time, give this a try, start building up your sanctum, and have fun with it. Seriously, have fun with it. Anyways, I hope this video helps you all. If you have any questions, leave them below. I'll do my best to answer them as clearly as I can. I know this can be a little tricky of a topic if you ain't got a live back and forth dialogue going, so I hope I was able to explain this as clearly as possible. And please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you'll get notifications anytime we release a new video. We are starting a few projects. We're wanting to do more than one video a week. We're hoping to get that started up soon. In the meantime, y'all have a wonderful day. I'm Drake. This has been Working Dragon Mystic. I'll see you next time.